Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. For some time now, there have been rumors circulating about a potential end to the petrodollar system. That's the system established in the 1970s by Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, in which Saudi Arabia and the other OPEC nations price their oil and gas exports in US dollars. And this is a major underpinning of the dollar's status as the world reserve currency. And really what we've been witnessing over the past year or so, and going back really further than that, is that the stage has been getting set for significant de-dollarization and an end to this system. And it looks like it may finally be happening, or at the very least, this week, we took a major step in that direction because China has just completed their first liquid natural gas trade settled in Chinese yuan, the Chinese currency. Now, before we get into the details of this trade, I want to point out that despite the fact that this story doesn't seem to be getting much attention at all in the mainstream financial media, this does represent a critical turning point in this transition to a multipolar financial world order. And it's a sign that the petrodollar is really on its last legs now. And there's some other stories we got this week which tend to confirm that. We're going to be getting into those in this video. But first, I want to take a look at the price action that we've been witnessing in gold and silver. So we've got these charts courtesy of SD Bullion. You can check them out with the link down in the description if you'd like to get your hands on some physical gold and silver metal. And you can see silver here now over 24 bucks today. Gold continuing to flirt with the $2,000 level. It's gone over $2,000 and then pulled back a couple times now. And I think that, once we see gold really break through that $2,000 level, it is going to be a much faster run to the upside. Both of these metals have been putting on significant gains since the collapse of SVB and Signature Bank just a few weeks ago. We know that physical demand for precious metals, gold and silver right now is through the roof. SD Bullion, I talked to them a couple days ago. We know that their shipping time is being affected by this, just by the huge influx of orders that they have been getting. And I did a video yesterday on junk silver. A lot of dealers getting sold out of junk silver. Junk silver is always kind of the first thing to dry up when there's big demand for physical metals, kind of the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. But I just want to point out that all of this demand for the precious metals, for gold and silver, is going to pale in comparison to what will be happening when the petrodollar finally collapses. And it's also no coincidence that right now the world seems to be on the precipice of a major conflict because, the end of the petrodollar, this may well mean the end of the dollar status as the world's reserve currency. And one thing that we see throughout history when there are these monumental shifts in the global financial system, it is frequently accompanied by major war. So this is all something that we should be paying close attention to. Now, today's video is brought to us by Silver Botanicals. You can check them out with the link down in the description. They have an amazing line of household and personal hygiene products powered by natural essential oils and nano silver. Don't forget that you can use coupon code STACKER to save 10% off your Silver Botanicals order. Now, let's get into what is going on with this liquid natural gas trade over in China. Well, it's actually 65,000 tons of liquid natural gas, supposedly originating in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Who knows? I mean, that's according to China. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that Russian gas, the stuff that was flowing through the Nord Stream pipelines and we know is now flowing east to Asia, if some of that got commingled in here. But the purchaser is French TotalEnergies, big energy company over in France, and they are paying in Chinese yuan via the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange. And, this story is really an indication that the de-dollarization trend, it goes well beyond Russia and China and even the BRICS nations. I mean, here we have France, a NATO member and part of the EU, settling a liquid natural gas trade with China in Chinese yuan. And this just goes to show you that, when oil and gas is priced in yuan or gold or whatever it happens to be priced in, people who need it, nations who need it, entities who need it, they're going to pay in whatever currency the seller is asking. I mean, there is this sort of network effect thing that goes on with international trade. And at this point, really the only reason that everybody is paying for energy in dollars is because everyone pays for energy in dollars. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you have the vast majority of market participants using one currency, it's just very convenient for new participants or other participants to do so. And when you begin to see payments settled in currencies other than the dollar, this is a real problem for this petrodollar system. And we could see this unravel in very short order with the advent of these yuan-based payments. Now, there is a bit of a misconception, I think, out there, and I'm basing this on comments that I get on this channel, that the petrodollar has already been abandoned and that, Saudi Arabia is maybe selling oil in currencies other than the dollar. And now they've certainly hinted at that recently. But as far as I know, all of OPEC's oil exports and energy exports are still being settled in dollars. In fact, back a couple weeks ago, or back in February, Iraq announced that they were going to be conducting trade with China in yuan, but they notably excluded oil from that arrangement. So they are still pricing those exports in dollars. And it's very important to understand that this is not the case. The petrodollar hasn't ended yet because, if it had already ended and, what we're seeing is what had happened, we've got, the dollar is retaining its value. It's still the world reserve currency. No big deal. But the thing is, it hasn't ended yet. And when it does, it is going to have major implications for the US dollar and the global financial system. Because what will happen is currently any country that wants to purchase petroleum, they've got to hold US dollars. So if they begin paying in yuan or gold or regional currencies or what have you, all of those dollars that they are holding to buy petroleum, they're all going to flood back into the US. And this is going to occur at a time when inflation is already elevated. Officially, it's at 6%. In reality, we know it's much higher than that. Recently, the Fed has reversed their program of quantitative tightening. We see their balance sheet is on the rise again. Probably the Fed has already paused their rate hikes as well. I mean, we just got a 25 basis point rate hike, but I would not be surprised if that was the last one that we see in this cycle. So, what's happening here is that the stage is already set for massive inflation. And if all of those dollars that are currently being held to purchase petroleum come flooding back home, it is going to be a huge problem for the dollar and for inflation. And I mean, any of these events taken individually would be problematic for the dollar. The Fed returning to QE, interest rates getting slashed, or the rate hikes getting paused, or inflation already being high. When you take all this stuff together, it is kind of a perfect storm for inflation. Now, I mentioned Saudi Arabia there just a moment ago, and they are also in the news this week. And this is something that kind of confirms the trajectory that we are on as far as the petrodollar system. So we've got Saudi Aramco has now entered into some major new investments with China. And keep in mind, this is the same Saudi Aramco whose CEO back in 2021 told China that meeting China's energy needs for the next 50 years would be Saudi Aramco's highest priority. Well, this week they announced that they are putting billions of dollars in new investments inside of China into these oil refineries. They picked up a 10% ownership of a major Chinese refinery to the tune of about $3.6 billion. And as part of this deal, they are going to be supplying about 480,000 barrels of petroleum per day to China's largest refinery facility. And at the same time, they announced a joint venture with some Chinese entities to build a new 300,000 barrel per day refining facility in northeast China. So, what we're seeing here is that China is now selling liquefied natural gas to European buyers, and they're settling the payments in yuan. And at the same time, the Saudis, who are basically the linchpin of the whole petrodollar system, they are more deeply integrating with China. China is already the largest importer of Saudi petroleum. And now these ties are getting much deeper with this Saudi Aramco integration and investment into the Chinese oil refining system. Now, this is all following the Gulf China summit that we had back in December in the Saudi capital of Riyadh. We had Xi Jinping petitioning Gulf nations such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia to price their oil and gas exports in yuan via the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange. And also, just in January, we had the Saudi finance minister at Davos telling Bloomberg in an interview that Saudi Arabia is willing to consider accepting other currencies as payment for their oil and gas exports.
I think with regard to China, they are the largest trading partner with Saudi Arabia. I think there are no issues with discussing how we settle our trade arrangements, whether it is the US dollar, whether it is the euro, whether it is the Saudi riyal or their currency.
There was no discussion on that at all.
I don't think we are waving away or ruling out any discussion that will help improve the trade around the world.
And now, with the newest development, we've got more than 600,000 barrels per day. Additional barrels of oil are going to be flowing to China from Saudi Arabia as part of these new deals and this new investment. And, do you really think that China is going to be paying Saudi Arabia US dollars for those barrels of oil? China, who is pursuing openly a policy of de-dollarization. Do you really think that they're going to be paying in dollars for that oil for much longer? I mean, I don't know about you. How do you think this is going to play out? Leave me a comment down below, because I think that it is fairly clear the direction that this is headed in now, and it's not going to be good for the petrodollar system. And when that announcement is finally made, and I don't know in what form exactly it will take, but let's just say Saudi Arabia acknowledges that they're going to be accepting yuan payments for their oil that goes to China. When that day comes, expect shockwaves to move throughout the global financial system. And right now, I think probably a lot of people, especially here in the US, are completely unaware of the threat that this poses to our way of life and to our currency. And if you don't believe me, just go ask your friends, your coworkers, your family, what they think of the petrodollar. I'm sure that the vast majority of people are going to look at you quizzically and have no idea what you're talking about. But the thing is that when the petrodollar system ends, the consequences of it are going to be impossible to ignore, and people are going to be getting a rapid education on this potential threat to the US dollar, because when it ends, it is going to have a major effect on the purchasing power of the dollar. And if you ask me at this point, it seems like it is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. The writing is on the wall for the petrodollar, and we should all be getting prepared for that. So leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think about the petrodollar and these most recent developments. What kind of effect do you think it'll have on the price of gold and silver, hard assets that can hedge against inflation? What do you think will come of all of this? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.